my first question. Is he home yet, or is he still on?
No.
Still on.
Yeah. And I didn't ask for an update this morning, so I don't have an update for you either.
He's there, we assume.
But he's there, yeah.
As far as,
And he feels fine.
That's good.
Yeah.
as far as yesterday, you were talking about Rasmus and how he gets up on the bench and he doesn't yell at how good does it feel or whatever. We talked about like how he's taken off in his play, but when did you see him, I guess, take off as a leader?
Boy, that's a question I'd have to reflect on. I always saw the compete in him, and wanted to bring that out because just being around him since I came to the Sabres 3 years ago, he to describe him, he's more of he doesn't want to disappoint people. Doesn't want to disappoint his coach, his teammates. So his first focus is almost on making sure that's okay. Am I doing the right thing? And very conscious effort to do the right thing and make sure he doesn't disappoint. And when I started working with more intensely, it was like, don't worry about disappointing me. You're not going to disappoint me. Get after it. Because I felt there was a real competitive burn there that I needed to unleash and help him unleash, I should say, where he wasn't worried about any repercussion from me or any what I think potentially negative. Just go. And the biggest reason was not necessarily his talent, but his compete. Because a lot of times you don't know how competitive these guys are because they enter the league and their focus is on staying in the league, or they get a roster spot and it's holding a roster spot. So you become conservative once you get that position. Play not to make a mistake, as an example. And that's the big part of behind the scenes, or the intangible part, I should say, of what we were trying to do here, is get these guys like Casey Middlestead, Tage, and Dahls to not worry about trying to do everything right to stay in the lineup. Saying, I'm going to keep you in the lineup. I need you going after it. I need to see your compete now. And with Ras, that was kind of the process. He had all this competitiveness that he couldn't unleash because he was more concerned with, okay, if I make a mistake, I might get bumped down a pair. There might be repercussions. So you play conservative. And when you play conservative, you don't even see any competitiveness. And that dynamic we needed to unlock in lots of players and open that up. And Dahls is one that has really thrived on that, I believe. Very comfortable. He's a guy, you guys know, we've spoken lots about how the other team targets him. And when I saw and see that, all they're doing is getting him in the game more. I mean, this guy, you go after him, he is going to go after you harder. There's no doubt. And if you reflect on games, he doesn't want to. He re-engages intensely and immediately upon any and then follows it up. You've stoked the fire in him. He's gonna go at you for the next 48 minutes or whatever's left in the game and raise that level, raise that bar. So, I saw that. I don't know where, Bill, but that is something that needs to be at the forefront of his game for his sake, because he loves it. He loves to compete.
Early in the season, I remember you telling us that, Dylan, it was obvious as well, that Dylan Cousins was putting a lot of pressure on himself to be that guy, when in reality, he didn't have a real rookie season. This is honestly a real rookie season for him. So how have you seen him evolve in the way that he's approaching things, and stop putting pressure on himself, and maybe actually just enjoy the process of developing in the NHL?
Yeah, I don't think he's enjoying the process yet because he just puts too much pressure on himself. He does. He puts extreme pressure on himself, and he wants to be 3 years ahead of where he is sometimes, and that's good. I don't think there's anything. There's the good in that far exceeds any negative. It matters to him, and that is a separator from the high end guys in this league. the high-end guys in this league, the guys that you could name and all over the league, every moment matters to them. They lose a face-off, they're pissed off, and it stings them until the next face-off. And then you have a guy equally as talented as that personality type, and they're like, you know what, I lost the draw, or we lost the game. I'll just score 3 tomorrow night against an easier team or something like that. And Dylan, everything matters to him, everything, and that is a little bit of it's a blessing, but it's a little bit of a curse too, because he can get frustrated and get frustrated quick, and when you don't have the hindsight yet to recalm yourself and refocus, it becomes a challenge. So he that type will have ups and downs, and we've seen that with Dylan, but you never again, I don't want to take away the compete, so I let him. He's going to have to experience those up and downs. He's not going to be somebody that I would healthy scratch ever, really. Or say, hey, you got to do this, you got to do that, because I don't want to take him out of that competitive zone. And so that's why I say he's going to get better and better and better. He's not just trying to conform to something. He's actually exploring what he can and can't do, and it's fun to watch him. And I would say Krebs is fairly similar. He is intense. Those two guys, you skip them over one shift, and it's a life crisis. It is. You talk about crisis management. You skip those guys over, you're going to have to manage that as a coaching staff, because they're intense.
Are you saying that with Dylan, you really can't coach it out of him? You just got to let him go through the process, and he'll get through it?
Well, you can always guide and help these guys, and that's what you do. But there's a natural process to this. If you want to coach it out of him, you're gonna while you coach that out of him, you're not going to get as skilled an athlete either. He's going to start conforming and playing conservative, and as I spoke of prior, and I don't want these guys playing conservative, and going out and overanalyzing and overthinking things. The competitive nature of a guy like Dylan Cousins or Rasmus Dahlin, that compete can be curbed the moment they feel that, oh my God, there's repercussions. I might lose my spot. I might lose my job. I might lose and for that, a spot on the power play or a spot in the depth chart. So I better conform and just play not to make a mistake, because if I don't make a mistake, I stay in the spot. And that dynamic we've had to shatter. Just get rid of that dynamic. And that's what we've had. That's what we do on the coaching side, because these guys, there's so much growth potential. As I've stated from day one, we need to get better, and we're not going to get better if we're trying to get these guys to, play conservative, or that we force them to play conservative.
So how do you go about, making sure that these guys aren't playing to not make a mistake? Like, what's that process like? What's those conversations like to kind of get them out of that mode of thinking?
It's constant. The word I've used a lot is, they've come in here after games and said, I'm really upset we hesitated tonight. And we played with fear. We need to play aggressive and assertive. And then you'll show them, you'll talk that'll be the language. And then you have to back that up with, video, I guess evidence of, here's what we mean. Here's a situation where you backed off and they made a play on you. Don't back off. And then you have to, make sure you're doing that in practice, and they're getting practice reps of that. So, it's all tied in, and it all has to be tied in. You have conversations, you have video, and you have to back it up in practice, and you have to make sure the next game you're laying out a strategy, and you're pointing those things out in the strategy, and then pointing them out even in between periods. Hey, here's where we had success in the first period, and here's a couple quick clips of where we backed off or we didn't do what we wanted to do. And our guys are really in tune to that process now. Like today's practice was a perfect example. The execution wasn't great, but they're a little tired this morning. But the sense of objective was really strong, and that's a big difference from. I didn't have to. I watched the practice. I was pretty darn happy that, when we entered a zone, they knew boom, 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 all the options, and where they should get a puck to, and where we could pressure a puck. And again, the execution wasn't great, but the sense of objective was extremely high, and that's what we want.
You talked about young players having to acclimate to the habits of playing great players, I guess. Was Matthias seeing as much Crosby as he did yesterday by design? Back to that.
Yeah, I mean it is because we feel comfortable with him playing against top players. He is. We talked about how athletically gifted he is to close on a guy and read plays, and he's probably our best defender in that area. Against skilled guys, he has such a massive range and can close on a guy deceptively quick. Players aren't used to somebody that big moving that athletically. Most guys his size in the league do not move at the player that quick and decisive. And if you look at all the guys in the league his size, and then you say, okay, let's look at the athleticism of all those guys that size. He's got to be up toward the top, and that surprises. So the better players have to calibrate to him, if that makes sense, because they don't see many defensemen with that type of athleticism and size coming at him.
From the outside looking in, it seems like ever since the Vegas Eichel night that something influenced you guys in a positive way. From your perspective, have you seen your team come together more since being in that experience?
Definitely, and I think there's several factors that go into that. Certainly, that was an emotional night, but we are so much healthier. I mean, we had 11 guys on the board that were injured. Probably the week before that Vegas game. And so we started getting guys back in the lineup from Hinestro's to Gergensons. Obviously, Anderson getting back to form after a couple months off. So we are stronger because we have key guys that re-entered the lineup, Middlestead, and that has helped us minimize the downs, stabilize things, I should say. And then when you have that, you can start, instead of reeling in games and chasing games, you can start really, there becomes a comfort in a game, and you can start identifying, with what we're doing and what we can do. And that's more consistent game to game. So you can build really fast when you're healthy. I think with the fluctuation in lineup and lines and depth and goaltending, there was so much adversity that we just had to just face, that we really couldn't we were surviving at points because of roster depletion, and I give our guys credit for that. I felt if we can get through that and get a little healthier, we can get a little more consistent, and once that happened, you can see our confidence just soar.
Thank you.
Yeah.